Welcome to Sharing My Truth with Mel and Suzie, the uncensored version, where we bear it all.
We do.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sharing My Truth Pod. You're here with Mel and Suzie, and we are so happy to be here with you today. Here's a quick and sweet, simple, friendly reminder to subscribe to this podcast in whatever app you're listening it to. We come out with episodes every single week, every single Wednesday, every hump day, if you know what I mean. You can also subscribe to all of our socials at Share My Truth Pod, Instagram, TikTok. Go watch us on YouTube. And then you can also go to sharemytruth.com where you can actually share your truths with us.
Yeah.
Email, snail mail, voicemail.
The mails.
The mail. Hey babes.
Hello, darling.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm just fab.
It's a lot coming over the holidays.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like a rush. It's like the roller coaster of it's like a really intense orgasm and then you drop.
I think that's a very Suzie way of putting it. Yeah, I like that. I think it's just like everyone kind of like stops, like grinds to a halt in an absolute, like you never do ever. So to then go, oh, I have to go back to work?
No, that's
I have
disgusting.
to do something? This is really not cool. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think because this year, the holidays, like the Jewish holidays, the Christian holidays have synced. And also like Christmas is in the middle of the week and New Year. So everyone's just been off. So it's all just, this isn't good. Who wants to go back?
No, it's disgusting. And this weather makes me want to lay in bed all day.
Yeah.
When it's freezing and it was blizzarding this morning.
Yeah.
I wanted to cry. But let's talk about something a little bit hotter, shall we?
Yeah, go on then. You do that.
Mel actually brought this up to me because she thinks
Sizzle it up.
She thinks it's a little bit odd, but she wants your guys' opinion on this because I mean, I like to watch weird things just for my own educational purposes.
Okay.
And also, you want to see what turns you on in weird ways. You don't want to be closed-minded to things. You want to keep your body and your mind open to new experiences.
But you're 29. It's a different thing, you know?
I think people should be open to this for their entire lives. Why does it matter how old you are?
No, it doesn't make any difference. There's a point where, you know, can't be asked. I mean, that's just like ridiculous. I just can't be bothered. There are only so many hours in the day. I've lost seconds and minutes of my life.
Well,
if
you can't,
and this that you're going to bring up is one of those things.
I mean, if you don't know what we're talking about yet, we're pretty much talking about.
What are we talking about?
What the fuck am I talking about? Fairy porn.
Yeah.
Fairy porn. But also it's
Which is a thing.
It's like it's like
bizarre that it's
magical, sexy stuff. There must be another kind of topic.
I think it should be in theory. I don't think it really is.
Of this. But
I think it's weird.
Because it's not cartoon, really. These are real quotations. Real people in like who have magical, mystical powers. And they're fucking.
Is it?
And Gen Zs are very into this.
Are they not just dressing up as whoever in whatever weird show?
Well, so that's the thing. So this is a weird thing because it's like it's always kind of been a popular topic.
Oh, it's totally
among people,
a thing,
right? So like Comic-Con, the anime thing, right? Hentai, which is like the porn, animated porn, the Japanese.
Yeah.
Right?
Like any kind of parties, my absolute hatred is, what do you call that in North America? We call it fancy dress. What the hell do you call it here? When you dress up as a person, like Halloween, like you go to like a costume. What do you call it here?
Yeah. Why are we so bad at this right now?
I don't know, but we call it, in England, we call it a fancy dress. So let's
dress.
Exactly, it's absurd.
Oh
so somebody's gonna have like a theme party, like everyone's dressed as, I don't know, Kim Kardashian, or everyone's dressed as I don't know, Michael Jackson. I don't know.
Sure.
Like there's a theme. There's some stupid theme.
Yeah.
I hate it. I can't bear it.
Yeah.
I want to be me. I'm not interested in dressing up as anybody that isn't me.
Right.
It's an ultimate hatred of mine that I've also told you this before. But I'm convinced that it is like a sexual thing. People want to escape into some weird fuckery that is not their fuckery and be something else.
No, that's true. But that's what sex is about.
Yeah, but I don't need to dress up as Michael Jackson to do it.
No, and I
Or
think
an elf.
This very important stuff, because it's becoming so popular. So Mel read this article, and that's why we're on the
which
we're
has
on
nothing
it
to
about
do with Michael Jackson. People are going to think she's got a bit of a thing about Michael Jackson.
Yeah, she does.
Which is not a good
really
thing.
don't think so.
I
No,
would
it's
like
not.
to just say, not a good thing
Yeah,
to
she
have a
doesn't.
thing about, so we'll just rewind that.
But no, so she sent me this article, and it's really about this new author who writes about fairy porn, and Gen Z is kind of getting onto it because they're audio booking it on Spotify and places like that.
Right.
So now, like, you know, these new generations finding these like kind of like extraterrestrial escapism porn fantasies that seem a little bit like less daunting than actually going on Pornhub and, let's say, and looking up something like fairy porn, which sounds super dubious, right? Like, oh, you're just reading about this book that's not actually porn. It's not even erotica, I don't think. It's actually just a story. But it happens to have a fairy and a sexy beast or whatever it is fucking.
Yeah.
So who cares?
Yeah.
But it's very erotic.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, stuff like we talked about, like Game of Thrones. I can't think of any of these shows because they're not my bag.
Okay, I love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of...
Why does that not surprise me?
So many tits.
Isn't there lots of sex in that?
So much sex. There's also
it's
weirdly...
very dubious.
It's also very incesty.
Yeah, I know. That's...
Very
and that
incesty.
is like, can't...
It's not good.
Can't be.
It's disgusting.
No.
It is. But, yeah, it's pretty fucked up. But like the stuff that isn't like super incesty is hot still, right? Like you have a lot of threesomes, a lot of tit parties, right?
Really?
Like the rich people, right?
I'm joking.
The royals are always fucking around.
Yeah.
Right?
But they're hot and they're in this weird world and all this thing. And there's
But it's not usually like a beast fucking a fairy. It's
No.
like just hot people in a different century fucking. Right?
Yeah,
like,
or
that's
in a
what it
different
is.
kind of like ethereal, like we have no connection to this.
Yeah.
Like so what did you do today? Oh, I went to the supermarket and I bought, you know, salad and milk and it's very boring and I went home and made dinner. And then you want to get into another world.
Yeah.
That is kind of the point of it.
Yes.
I think.
Well, I think people, and maybe this is like why Gen Z is so into this, right? Like,
is it just Gen Z?
I think mostly Gen Z are getting into this, and that's why we're kind of talking about it. It's like, and that's why it's staying popular, right? Because I think fairy porn has always been kind of a thing, but it's a little bit more under the rug. I think Gen X even has made it popular.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But this is why I'm saying it's like we're kind of coming around because I haven't heard this from millennials at all. Maybe not the millennials I've done it, but also maybe that's not right because things like the Twilight series that was never my thing. I never read those books, but that was huge,
what
right?
Were they werewolves,
and there were werewolves, and there was vampires, and there was a normal girl, right, and they were all fucking each other or something.
Yeah, again, I just can't get behind that.
But I don't think it was really erotic. I think that was just like love and some weird lusty stuff.
Yeah, but I think is it all a bit like? I mean, there are lots of shows on TV who are about like another world or a past time or something, and people can sort of really get into that.
Yeah.
And I guess the costumes, I'm sure it's about the costumes. It's all about the dress
People
up.
like dressing up and becoming someone else when they're fucking. It's just the way it is.
It's about that.
But like, so we're seeing a lot of, so maybe Gen Z is kind of becoming Gen X again in this weird thing where it's like they're kind of pushing into a more normalcy life. Like they're getting married at a younger age, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to settle down.
Yeah.
Like they're not having sex enough. Like that's just a fact. So they're kind of having to put themselves in these escape modes and like thinking about maybe more exciting things that they'll never actually do or happen.
So do you want to hear my theory about Gen Zs and Gen Xs?
Always.
So I think that Gen Xs, who are generally the parents of Gen Zs, as is my case.
Yes.
We, as parents, parented, and we're responsible for a lot of the problems in the world. I have to tell you this.
I thought that was all boomers.
No, because what happened is our parents were some boomers or older. We didn't like the way we were parented and the fact that our parents were distant and really couldn't give a fuck about what we did and where we were and whatever. So we as parents have gone the complete opposite and raised these children who are
Pussies.
yeah. And it's hugely problematic.
Right.
But I think what I'm seeing is like Gen Zs are like, they look at millennials and like, oh my God, I don't want to be like them.
What are we like?
I
I think pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, I don't think they think that. I think they
You
think
never think the generation ahead of you was cool, though.
yeah, but I think Gen Zs they look at my generation and they think, wow, particularly women, you really completely fucked this up.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Fucked what up?
Well, I think they think, oh my God, like particularly my generation of women, and this is getting very far away from fairy porn.
Maybe it's not.
But that we, we wanted to work and we wanted to have children, we wanted to be Superwoman. And clearly we spectacularly failed on
That's
the whole.
not true.
Well, I think we kind of did. Like we were
experiment
good.
with everything.
Well, we were good at certain bits, but not all of it, being a realist. And I think millennials, people look at millennials and just think, oh my God, you just can't kind of cope with anything. Is that fair? Do you think that's extreme?
I think
Gen Xers are very tough. We're a tough bunch.
Are you a tough bunch?
Yeah.
I've met a lot of bitchy Gen X.
Yeah, but that's tough, isn't it?
I guess.
Like, we have we have all sorts of problems and issues, to be fair. But, so I think that Gen Zs are kind of trying to go back a bit. It's quite strange.
Right.
I find quite a lot of Gen Zs, and I think that's where the trad wife and all this stuff comes from, are actually quite traditional.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting. They're like
younger millennials too, like myself.
Yeah, 100%. Like my kids will say to me, "Oops, sorry." They'll say, "You were there, mum, and you were there for us, and we want to be mums that were around." I mean, I always worked, but I was always around. And they're like, "No, we think that's great." And we notice our friends where the mothers were not there. Like, it's interesting. It's like they're going backwards in a sense.
Yeah.
I think in many senses, in sense of sexism, I think in sense of wokeism, I think all sorts of things. Gen Zs they're looking at things going, this is all
the hell is going on?
A little fucked up. And I think a lot of people that are responsible for this stuff are Gen Xers.
You fuckers.
Yeah, we are.
I'm just kidding.
Especially in this country, and we won't talk about politics, but that is true. But so are they escaping?
So they're more
Maybe
into kind of fantasy porn. Fantasy porn, maybe that's the thing I was trying to figure out. Because there's different types of fantasy porn, right? There's like the animated stuff, right?
Yeah, but that's
and then
different.
There's like someone who maybe looks like a fairy,
from, like,
and then
Japan,
there's dressed up,
and they can't have real porn, so they make cartoons that look like porn, which is kind of really odd if you think about it.
It is odd, but because I've watched it before, sometimes it feels good knowing that a girl didn't have to go through this
fair enough
to make this porn, and someone could just draw it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Like, great, a voice actor got paid, hopefully, well on this, and that's all they had to do.
Fair enough. So actually, I've never thought about it like that, but actually, that makes a lot of sense.
It honestly makes me feel good watching animated porn sometimes, because I'm like, no one had to suffer. Not that porn is suffering, but like it possibly could be. You know what I mean? If we're talking realistic about it.
Let's be frank, even in today's age, is about, women being in certain... I mean, it's grim. A lot of it is quite grim.
Nowadays it is.
Yeah,
nowadays
it's always been grim.
Yeah.
There's nothing, there's lots
super sexist, super misogynistic.
Yeah, and there's a lot of changes that have been made. There's a lot of really famous, like, porn houses that women are running, right? And so it's meant to be more... There's more a storyline and all this kind of stuff. And it's more women-centric and women pleasure and all this. There's a very famous woman in the UK. There's a very famous woman in Spain who run... But it's still, for the most part, that is not what it is. And it's just like... you know.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of women look at that. And that's why, for example, a lot of younger women do look at gay porn, or they look at alternative things, because like you said, they're like, I don't want to see this woman
Mhm.
with like, no, I
Yeah.
don't want to see that. And I maintain most of the men in porn are grim. They're just like, where did they find these men?
I know, you really
The
just want a
women are
good dick.
one thing, and the men are just like, what is this?
Do you watch porn? Do you want to be honest about it?
I find for the most part, it's, well, you can't watch lots of it. It's like boring, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. Like, when
It's
I watch porn,
visual.
I have to go through many videos until I come. Like, I don't just watch one video.
Yeah, but I think a lot. Well, I mean, who is actually? This is a question for the world. Who is sitting and watching a whole thing from beginning to end?
Well, right. Are some people really that invested in the story?
I don't know. And you think,
But that's
about
what this fairy porn shit is.
Yeah, but you think about fairy porn, like most thing is like, you know, oh, I'm at home and suddenly the plumber turns up and we're having a foursome or
baby.
whatever it is. It's
Foursome,
still like ridiculous, right? It's all absurd, right? For the most part. Oh yeah, we just happen to be hanging
The
out.
landlord
Yeah,
comes, and
exactly.
don't forget about the
We
property
happen-
manager.
We happen to be in our whatever. And you know, it's all absurd. And it is
God.
all entertainment.
Yeah.
And again, it's like what kind of entertainment you like. Some people like comedy, some people like drama, some people like crime, and that's fine, and you like what you like. But it is interesting to me, who does watch the whole thing from beginning to end?
I don't know if a lot of people do, but
They can't.
there is that
Can
thing
they?
of like being invested in the story about this fairy porn stuff. Like, people are reading and listening to these books that technically I don't think are actually erotica.
Yeah.
They're literally just, they have these love interests that are ethereal and like, you know, mystical and aren't human. And that is the most interesting part of this. And that's that's what's getting people horny.
Yeah, and maybe it's less offensive.
It's possible that it's less
Possible.
offensive.
Because, like, to your question, like, do I watch porn? Well, I think everyone watches porn, and I think
Right.
they're really lying. Because if they're not, because it is a billion-dollar industry. And of course, everyone watches it in some form at some point
Yeah.
for something. You know, do a lot of people like really enjoy it? You know, it's very, for the most part, it's quite boring,
Yeah.
I think. And so, therefore, and I think so many things have been done again and again and again. And how many times can you watch, like, whatever? And so maybe that's the thing. Like, this is different, right? I don't know. Maybe. And maybe. Well, I mean, it's escapism, isn't it? I don't think you need to psychoanalyze it. I think it's just escapism.
Yeah.
Some people are, you know, they just want to get outside of themselves. They kind of like those kind of storylines. They like, you know, TV shows about, you know, another dimension, another world or whatever.
Well, it's like having a gangbang with a fucking beastie dude and another like fairy boy, and you're the little cream cheese in between, and that feels really nice.
The cream cheese.
Hey, you know, the
Little
little cute fairy girl in between. For
Wow.
sure. Like that, but that person might not want that outside of that, right? Like, it's just a fantasy that they have.
Oh yeah, I mean, for the
This,
most part,
like,
that is what it is. It's a
Yeah.
fantasy, and it doesn't need to. I mean, my personal view about like porn is that until it gets into the realm of like disturbing and violent,
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing. It's
Yeah.
just like, who cares what you watch? Like, if you watch like, I don't know, you want to watch elves or you want to watch.
Well, it's mostly romantic. It's mostly erotic. It's not like
Yeah.
violent or anything,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm assuming most of it is not, right? Like if you want to talk about like the famous erotic books that most people came about,
Yeah.
right? Like the 50 Shades
Yeah.
of Grey,
Yeah.
that wasn't like mystical or anything or
No.
fantasy, but it was a certain,
just-
I mean, it was a certain kind of fantasy. And
It was erotic.
It was one of the most, it was
Yeah.
not, it was the most popular book of that year, whatever year that was,
Yeah.
where they had to come out with a movie and all this other bullshit. And it was an awful book. I don't know if you read it. 50 Shades of Grey.
I didn't, but it was funny when it came out, and I remember being in. I think the writer's British, Pretty sure she is. And I remember it was and then you'd sort of be on the tube and you'd see everyone reading this book and everyone sort of looking at each other and like, what page are you on?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I think the thing about 50 Shades, and maybe it's the same thing about fairies or whatever it is it was kind of acceptable erotica.
For sure.
So it was like, this is okay. You can read this because we've all said it's okay. Even though we're talking about rooms with like sex swings and shit going on.
Floggers.
Exactly. And you're just like, I mean, I don't care. Read whatever you like. But why is this okay and something else isn't okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the hypocrisy of society. You know, why is it that you can't be a fairy, but you can pretend to be the plumber or the pool boy or the whatever it is, or exercising, and all of a sudden I've got nothing on.
Spit my pants.
Exactly. All of a sudden I've got, I'm in a lesbian tryst, but before that I was on the Peloton. It's not really any different, is it? It's just stupid.
Yeah.
And I think it's all a level of what do we find acceptable, what is okay, what is our escapism, what kind of touches us in a way.
The worst erotica I've ever read in my life.
Yeah, I have not read it, and I watched some of the first movie, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I couldn't. The acting was so bad, and I was just like, we can't, no. And I didn't make it through the.
Well, there's
I don't know how many are.
The movie's awful. The book is awful, in my opinion.
There's
Maybe
a few
you like
movies,
the book.
aren't there?
Yeah, and there's a few books.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to listen to like real erotica, there's some amazing like audio erotic porn, like sites and apps.
Oh my God, there are lots of them.
So many of them. And if one of them wants to sponsor us, feel free.
Please.
We would love you.
We're here.
But I like to listen to erotica sometimes, not all the time, but it is a fun thing to do with a partner. Yeah, too, as like a foreplay thing.
Sure.
If you find that watching porn with a partner is kind of excruciating, sometimes it can be kind of awkward for whatever reason. But listening to porn is much more friendly, if that makes sense.
Well, it's more acceptable.
Yeah,
because I think there's an element of, it's just going into my ears. Yeah, nobody can hear it. I think a lot of women have this thing that they listen to audio on their own and they feel fine about it, but they wouldn't watch anything. But you're like, okay, and I think there's an element of what you were talking about, the anime thing, is that if you're listening to something and you're creating the image in your head, therefore nobody's had to actually do that. It's okay, as opposed to watching something. And I do think women have a lot of issues with that, like on varying levels, that they just watch it and they just go, do I want to be watching that person doing that? And I think whereas men are just don't have any issues.
Well, there's a thing of like, when sometimes after I watch porn, and I know a lot of guys have this too, so I'm assuming women also, like other women do have too, but there's that after that post-cum clarity. Have you heard of this?
Clarity, yes.
Of course. So like whether it's you fucking someone who maybe you shouldn't have been, but it was in the moment, or you watch some porn that was like, what the fuck did I just watch and why did I just come to it?
Yeah.
And this happens all the time, right? Like where you're just like, why did that turn me on? What did that open up in my mind?
Well, yeah,
that now it turns me on.
Weird or fearful.
Yeah, and now you're like, oh fuck, why? What happened? And maybe that's also happening with these people who are listening to this weird kind of fairy porn, fantasy porn kind of stuff, right? Where they're like, wait, I don't want to.
Well, maybe.
Why does this turn me on?
Yeah, but also listening to it, they can create these, like, it's very hard. Like how many sort of fairy porn videos are there where really replicate exactly kind of what they're thinking about? It was pretty hard, right? Without looking really dubious.
Before we did this episode, I was obviously doing my research on Pornhub, and
obviously,
and I was just trying to see, like, there are the porn videos on Pornhub about fairy stuff and like fantasy stuff are super dubious.
Of course,
like that's all it is.
Of course, they're gonna be.
But if you do find that there's like the audio stuff, the actual written stuff is much more about love and connection and all of these things that women originally
Writing a story.
like.
Creating
Yes.
an atmosphere, an environment, of
That's
mood,
like
of
very
thing,
sexy and
blah,
like
blah, blah. I mean,
make- yeah.
even, years ago, they used to have these sort of very romantic, erotic books about love stories like Mills and Boon. I don't know how graphic it was, but they talked about sex or not like the actual penetration, but it's like he was touching her leg and all this sort of stuff.
It was such a-
And she was moist or whatever. I don't know.
Moist?
I added that in. I thought that
Holy shit.
I thought that would, no, they didn't say that. I just thought I'd get a reaction from
Moist is very good.
But women like reading that.
Yeah.
And men would just be like, I don't particularly, maybe this is where
Because men are visual.
maybe I'm partly male in this sense. 'Cause
No, I'm fucking
I'm
whole.
so
Yeah, I need a visual
feminine
too.
in everything in my life. But this is something like the audio or reading. I don't want to sit there and read. And his hand was. I just find
His
it.
hand was on her lady bits.
His groin was palpitating.
Was,
And she was gyrating. I find it excruciatingly boring.
that's so
Whereas some people really get into it.
Yeah.
Because I guess they're going into the end of the day, fairy porn, if it's your shtick and you like it
Yep.
and you want to hang out with somebody who's another fairy or a fucking wizard
or werewolf.
or a werewolf
Hot.
and you want to werewolf and fairy up together, you do you, is my opinion. As long as you're doing it together and you're having fun and it's your thing, go ahead.
You have Mel's blessing.
You have my blessing.
Wow, that was
Go
beautiful,
ahead.
Mel.
I
Thank
mean,
you so much.
I think, I've said it, haven't I?
I think you goddamn have. And maybe you guys are into some fantasy porn. Maybe there's some porn out there that we haven't even heard of.
Do we want to know?
I want to know. Send us a video about it.
God, it's very disturbing.
Don't worry about Mel. She won't watch it, but I will.
She
but yeah,
will.
guys, if you guys have any opinion about this, you guys can let us know at sharingmytruth.com or go to any of our socials at sharingmytruthpod. We'll see you there.
We will.
Sharing My Truth Pod is so excited to partner with Vibrator.com, where the A in vibrator is the number 8. This is an extremely exclusive code where no other podcast has it. If you go to Vibrator.com right now, use the code MS15, that's MS15 at Vibrator.com. You can now get 15% off anything in store. That's any sex toys for you, your partner, your neighbor, your mom. We don't judge. We don't care. Get it now. Go to the link in our bio, put in the code, and get jiggy with it.
Thanks so much for listening. Please rate and review this podcast and follow us on social at Sharing My Truth Pod and leave us a voicemail on our website, sharingmytruth.com, to share your stories and experiences with us. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.